Good morning again. My name is Matt Koomen. I'm the Mosaic pastor here. I'm excited to worship with you today. We are in an exciting phase. We're starting into a new series. If you didn't realize, we are going into the 10 Commandments. And you'll notice throughout this series, we have asked different artists and creative people in the community to depict what they think of for each commandment. So you'll notice throughout this series, there's going to be different artwork and on the back screens here. So this is the first one for what someone thought of as the do not have other gods. We'll get into that as we go, but we're excited for this series. I'm excited for this series already, what it's doing in me and for me as I figure out personally, okay, what does it mean to be a people of God, and how does that still apply for us today? Because as a people of God, when we started looking at this a little bit last week, some of the history around the people of God, where they've been and where they came to, even in Jesus. I mean, if you missed this last week, make sure to jump in. We've got all that on podcasts and Spotify, because we build off of these messages a little bit. So make sure you jump onto that. But there's some unique history around the people of God, and we see throughout the Bible, God, even though His people continue to fail, even though His people continue to sin, He's always pursuing after them, right? And we're at this time, this stage in the Bible, in Exodus, where we're going to be spending most of the next 10 weeks looking at how the people of God had been in slavery in Egypt for about 400 years, and now God has called them out and they're wandering in the desert. And this is what God says to His people, and He says this to Moses up on the mountain. It starts Exodus 20, 1-3. And God spoke all these words: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before me. Do not have other gods. That is commandment number 1. And the first question, as I was developing this and looking into this, the first question I asked of this is, why does God have this as the first commandment? Why does this show up first? Of all the 10 commandments here, why this one first? But to get to that answer, we've got to do a little bit of digging. So the people of God, the Israelites, have been in slavery for 400 years up until this point. And in this slavery, they were underneath the oppression of the Egyptians. They were living in Egypt. They were slaves to them. And what they got used to is some of the things the Egyptians did, some of the things that the Egyptians found dear to their heart. In that day and age, the Egyptians had lots and lots and lots of gods, of foreign gods, of false gods. And so the Israelites, the people of God, would have seen and been near a lot of these different worshipings of gods that were not their own. I want to give you a few. Before we go into that, so if we picture 400 years, if we read that, it doesn't seem like that long, but if we think even about the American history, the United States history, the first time there was an English settlement back in Virginia, the first settlement was in the 1600s, right? So that was before the United States even existed, and the amount of history and the amount of time that's taken place, like, there's a lot that's happened in the last 400 years. So picture that amount of time frame for Israel and the people of God. There's a lot of people who are living, all of the people living in Egypt as the people of God have only known Egypt, have only known slavery, and their parents have only known slavery. Their grandparents have only known slavery. Like, it has been a long time in this place of Egypt. So they have grown very accustomed to what the Egyptians find normal, which one of those that we're going to speak of really closely today is this idea of the foreign gods and the gods that the Egyptians ran to in times of distress, the gods that they sacrificed to, the gods that they prayed to specifically. And I want to go over a few of them, and I found some pictures of them, and you'll realize really quickly that the Egyptians were not creative people, okay? Outside of the pyramids. I guess that was kind of cool. But as far as making images of their gods, they were not very creative. Okay, the first one, the Egyptian god Hapi, Hapi. Okay, so this is the god of the river, god of the Nile. The Nile was the main, really life source back in that day. It was the river. Food would come from that river. It would water their crops. So much was surrounding this river. That's the god of the river. Happy. Next one, Egyptian god Heket. Yeah. What's her face look like? A frog. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? You're like, okay, they got real creative with that. So she is the god of fertility or childbirth, right? So she was depicted as a frog. I guess frogs make lots of babies. I guess that makes sense, right? Next one, Egyptian god Geb, god of the earth. Okay, so this is Geb, god of the earth. So these are ones that I'm reading that they would have been more, they're important ones that they would often go to. I think they had in the hundreds, if not thousands of different gods, but these are some of the more important ones to them. The Egyptian god Khepri. Khepri? I don't know if the K is silent or said loudly. What do you notice about the head of this one? It's like a beetle, like a bug, like a fly, right? So this is the god of creation and rebirth. Next one is the god Hathor, goddess of motherhood and fertility. So particularly with like livestock, like this was valuable to them. The next one, number 6, Sekhmet, the goddess of healing and protection. You notice the theme? Like they all look very similar. Like there's no difference outside of maybe what their head looks like. Next one, the goddess of the sky is the goddess Nut. Okay, so that's goddess Nut. Responsible for controlling the weather and protecting the heavens. Okay, a few more here. Nippur, the god of grain. Look at that. Yeah, very nice, the god of grain. And number 9, Ra, the sun god. But he's got the face of a falcon. Just that I like that one. Symbol of life and of energy with the sun there. And then number 10, we don't have a picture of this, but number 10, one of the very well-known gods in their day and age would have been Pharaoh. Pharaoh would have been the living god for them, and he would have been depicted as a god there. So there's tons of gods in Egypt. These would have been ones that the Israelites, the people of God, would have been very used to seeing. They would have been, if they were working for Egyptians and slaves under the Egyptians, this is who their masters then would be worshiping. This is who their masters would go to. If there was a drought, they would pray to these gods for rain. They would pray to them in different and do different sacrifices to these. This would have been such a way of life for the Egyptians, and because of that, it would have been very much a way of life for the people of God. So God, in this first commandment, wants to bring clarity to his people, right? No other gods, have no other gods. This is important. They've come from a nation and an area that has hundreds of gods. So this is drastically different from what these people are used to. Now, in Exodus 7 through 11, so we're going back, the 10 commandments are in Exodus 20. If we go back a few pages to Exodus 7 through 11, we hear more of the story about Moses going into Egypt, and then the plagues are coming. Okay, so Pharaoh does not want to let his people go, and Moses is saying, let my people go. God wants his people freed from this area. And so what we find is that through the different plagues, through 7 and 11, Pharaoh doesn't let his people go. But God continues to show up and with these different plagues to try and convince Egypt and Pharaoh that, okay, it's time to actually let God's people go. Okay, so this next part is fascinating, okay? If you've already zoned out to me, this is time to click into gear, okay? This is great. As I was researching this, I thought this was just nuts. Okay, and if this doesn't blow you away, your lives are way too exciting, so you should chill out a little bit, okay? So follow me with this here. When we look at the plagues, and if you've got time this week, look through them. It's just Exodus 7 through 11. We're going to go through them really quickly. I'm not going to read them word for word from the Bible, but I'd love it if you had time to do this week. Plague number 1. Okay, water is turned into blood. Okay, the Nile River, that is just turned into blood. So all the fish in there are dead. Their main life source for getting water to their crops, the main water source for getting water to their animals has now turned to blood. You can't just have animals drink blood and think they're going to survive from that, right? That is the main source. And God in this first plague turns water into blood. Next plague, because Pharaoh says no. Egypt is swarmed with frogs. Hundreds of thousands, I think, of frogs are just eroding everywhere. They're coming in from all places. They're filling the houses. They're in people's beds. Frogs are everywhere. The third plague, gnats or lice, gnats. I don't know why G's are in front of gnat. That doesn't even make any sense to me. So for whoever invented that, I will say it gnats because that's how you wanted it. They infest the land and the people. They're all over. Flies come next because Pharaoh continues to say no to God and Moses. No, I will not let the people go. Flies come next, and they cover the land. The next plague is an attack into the livestock. There's a disease that comes through the livestock, killing most of them. Pharaoh still, no. The next plague, boils. Painful boils, sores on people's hands and bodies appeared on the Egyptians and on their animals. Pharaoh still, no. God then sends hail, a severe hailstorm that destroyed a lot of the crop and a lot of the land because of those hail, the hail pieces that dropped down. The next plague, locusts. Swarms of locusts devoured what remained of any crops and vegetation after the hail came through. Still, Pharaoh said no. The next plague, darkness. 3 days of utter darkness. And I think it's the kind of darkness where, like, if you've ever been deep in a cave and there's no light and you can't see your hand in front of you, I'd be like, no, this isn't for me. I'm going to find a cliff, right? Like, you can't actually find it. Everything stops, right? Nothing can happen because it is dark. And that is what happened as that next plague. Still, Pharaoh said no. And finally, the last and final plague is the death of the firstborn son, which we talked about right before Easter even, and the Passover moment where the Israelites slain a lamb and put the blood on their doorpost to protect them from the angel of death, right? It's this Passover moment, and it is the death of the firstborn. So every firstborn of every Egyptian family, even including Pharaoh's, was killed if they didn't have that blood on their doorpost. Okay, have you all stuck with me so far? Anyone notice any correlation here? Like this is where it's insane to me. If you're not catching up here with this, we're gonna go through it quickly. See, water turned into blood. If we think about the plague, think about their god, one of their gods, right? Is the god of the Nile and all the bodies of water. God is saying in this. And that God could not overturn the water. Because imagine if you're the people of Egypt and the people of God's God turned the water into blood. You're looking to your God saying, change it back, please, right? Please, quickly change it back. We can't have this. Our livestock is essential. We need this for our livestock. And their gods could not do it. Right? God is saying in this moment, I am above them. They are not superior to me. The next plague, frogs. Remember Frog Lady? Yeah. Frog Lady did not have any authority over all the frogs. God sent frogs. I think we serve a sarcastic God sometimes, right? Like there's got to be some humor in this. They have got a goddess who has the head of a frog, and God sends in a plague of frogs to show the people, your God does not have authority even over the very thing your God is, right? The frogs are just coming in, and she cannot send them away. She's got no authority over them. The next one, the next plague, the gnats or the lice with the infestation of the land, the god Geb, the fact that the very dust of the earth, right? That the gnats or the lice, it says, came from the dust. That the very fact that they came from the dust, that is who Geb, the fertility god of the land itself, that they produced gnats from his thing, something that just decimated that nation, that it came from that. But God is saying, I am above you. It continues with flies. This confronts Kefri, the God of creation and rebirth, who's associated with these insects. God is saying he is above all life, even the flies. It continues with the livestock. This disease that swept through Egypt, killing all of the livestock. God is speaking and challenging in here Hathor, who is the goddess of motherhood and fertility, depicted as a cow, saying that I am the symbol. God, I, the one true God, am the symbol of fertility and what comes from nature. The next one is boils, painful boils appearing on the Egyptians and their animals. And God in this is challenging this goddess Sekhmet. I'm probably not saying that right, but she's the goddess of healing and protection. And when the Egyptians are all of a sudden covered in boils, they're going to this God and nothing is happening. But the God of the Israelites, the God of those people who have been enslaved, is sending this awful stuff to them, and their gods are able to do nothing to it so far. He's far superior to them. It continues with the hailstorm. This plague challenges not the goddess of the sky, right? The Egyptians are looking up and seeing these big ice balls coming from the sky saying, what is happening? Right? God saying, I am above this goddess too. Locusts come. Right? This continues. God shows that I am above the food. I am above anything that can be consumed in this day. Darkness comes. Right? This is a smack in the face against the Ra God, the God of the sun, saying, I will turn off the lights. Right? This is incredible. Right? This is insane. Then you look at Pharaoh, the living God, and God says, no, you have nothing over me. You have no superiority over me. I am the God. I am the one true God. And there is something beautiful in this. When we piece this apart and look at God, what God may have been truly doing in this story, saying that yes, you have been used to seeing lots of different gods. You've been used to experiencing all of these different gods that your masters or your people have been praying to. Maybe you just grew accustomed to it and maybe you started doing that as well. But I'm here to say it's different. They have no authority over me. They are false gods. They are not true. They have no power. They are made up. Have no other gods, because I am the God alone, and I am alone powerful. You shall have no other gods before me. See, this idea, this understanding, do not have other gods before me. This isn't even a reference to that he should be the higher God. Right? God isn't saying, make sure I'm at the top. It's fine if you have all of these other gods. You can pray to those things, but as long as I'm the number one God, that we can have a few behind me. No, God isn't saying this. In the understanding of no other gods before me is truly like no other gods in my sight. I don't want any gods around me. They do not deserve that kind of devotion. They don't deserve that kind of devotion that you have for gods. Don't have them around me. What I find most fascinating when we look at the plagues and these stories around Egyptian gods, and God gives this idea and this command for them as, I think it's truly a good thing, right? We can read these commands, and often we read these commands as commands, right? Like almost like fences that we have to play in, like do not go outside of these things, do not have other gods, do not, right? All of these things. But I think in a way, God wanted us to read these as almost fruit that will come if we are his people, right? For God's people, for them, they're coming out of Egypt. They're coming from the hundreds of gods they're used to. What if God is saying, do not have other gods? What if he's saying that if you are my people, you don't have to have other gods. You don't have to try and keep track of hundreds of gods, figure out which one you should be praying to at the right time, which one to have sacrifices to at the right time. I am the one true God. You don't have to have other gods before me. There's a beauty in just, I am the one. This is a benefit that you just have to go to me. I'm powerful over all of the things. I am the one true God. You don't have to consult the god of Geb when you're farming. You don't have to consult the sun god Ra when you need more light and it's been raining for a few days. You don't have to play those games. I am the one true God. You won't have other gods before me because you won't have to, because I am above all of these things. See, but what I'm relieved most about is that we don't struggle with anything like that today. Right? Like they dealt with the gods, right? They've got all these different characters and different people with frogs on their heads and gnats on their head. We don't have that issue. We don't make gods like that anymore. If only it were so simple, right? If we don't, if only it were that easy, right? Let's maybe phrase it a different way. What things get our devotion? Right? If I think about God, our true God, and he is looking for our devotion. He does not want to share devotion with any other gods. He wants our devotion. So if we ask that question, what things outside of God get our devotion? What gets our love? What gets our time? What gets our thoughts? See, as I was preparing for this message, I thought about this for myself, which I hate doing. I hate making this like actually apply to me too here. But for me, I love Lions football. And if you've been with us over the last year, I talk occasionally about Lions football, especially in the fall because I'm deeply immersed in it. But when I think about Lions football, when they are playing, like when they send out the schedule in the fall, like I make sure that like the Monday nights and Thursday nights games, I have them on my calendar so that we don't book anything else. So that like come 8:20 on Monday night, I can watch the Lions game. And I'm very clear with my wife on those days. The children need to be in bed early because I don't want to be bothered, right? Like I want to watch the game in peace and silence, and they're like I want to be dedicated to this. And I'm like, oh no, I just said the word dedicated. It's probably not good. But like I get into it. And even last year, the NFL draft, like it really doesn't matter all that much, but I started getting into the draft and perspectives of people who are drafted like that will never see playing time in the NFL. And I'm just all excited about and it's to the point where in the fall I listen to podcasts about people's thoughts about the Lions even. Like I watch the game and then I turn on a podcast and I listen to people's thoughts about the game. I get excited about that. And then I'll text people during the game about their thoughts. Like, what'd you think about this call? Do you think that was in? I don't really think the refs had that one right. Like I get into it. And so much so that I went to a game right at Green Bay last year. So exciting. Financially, it costs a lot of money to buy a ticket and to travel and to get there. But it was important to me. I love the Lions. And it's bad because there's days if they lose or if they win, it will dictate my mood for a bit, right? Like that's kind of terrifying when you think about it. And if you've been a Lions fan, you know it comes with a roller coaster of emotions, right? Even if you're watching the game, I typically sit in a recliner and it'll thwam up and down as I'm like, I get up and I sit down and I get up and I sit down and then I shout. Or if it's like 9 o'clock and the girls are in bed, I shout quietly like, what? Right? Like, I love it. I get into it. And then I think about where is my devotion? And I actually ask myself in this, and I think about this question, and it actually devastated me. And maybe you're out there thinking, yeah, Matt, you super have a problem. You don't have to ask questions. We'll answer it for you, right? But I ask myself this, am I more likely to talk about an exciting Lions game or talk about a passage of Scripture that really hit me that week? And this is for me. You probably don't deal with this, right? But I'm like, oh, right, am I putting my devotion too much in the wrong place? Right? Because the answer, if I'm being honest, if I can be honest on the stage here, I am way more likely to talk about a Lions football game than about an exciting passage of Scripture that I read or a way that I saw God move. That's hard to wrestle with, right? Where is my devotion? Right? God told his people, you shall have no other gods before me. If you are my people, you won't have other gods before me. You won't need to have other gods before me. Nothing else should get your devotion. So what is it for you? See, what's interesting to me as I wrestle with this too is this understanding that sometimes we think devotion is bad things. We look at the Egyptians and think about their gods and say, God, that didn't do anything for them. Why did they actually look to those gods? But for us, I think we can be in a very similar spot because we even can get devoted to things that we think are good things, right? And there's some of these things that I'm going to read here that are good things, but do we get more devoted to them or to God? Right? We can be so devoted getting our kids in the right schools, right? Getting our kids to have good grades in their classes, getting our kids in the right sports so that they excel, so that someday they can go off to college and get scholarships and hopefully maybe pursue a career in sports. Right? We do all of this work. We put all of our finances and all of these different things into our kids. And what are we prepping them for? Right? Is our devotion to our kids or is it to God? Right? When's the last time and how much? Not when's the last time, how much effort are we putting to get our kids into something faith-based or helping them grow their faith in some way? Or are we putting more time into their future sports career? Right? Don't hear me in this like, love your kids and create experiences for them. But when we take that to another level and forget that our number one priority with our kids should be bringing them closer to God. But often we wrestle with what the culture is doing around us and say, but I've got to get them closer to sports. Or I've got to get them closer to getting good grades because that's what matters for their future. Is it? Their future? What do we want for their future? Right? Are you more excited? We'll ask the question this way. Are you more excited to talk about your kid's sports than you are what your kid has been learning in youth group or Sunday school? Or a way you saw God show up through them? Maybe through something kind they did and you're like, you really showed the love of Jesus today. What stories are we sharing with the people around us? So you shall have no other gods before me. We can be devoted to another thing. And this is one I'm also guilty of, is this idea of being busy. Right? Anyone else faulted for if someone says, hey, how have you been? Busy. Yeah. Oh, but good busy. These can all be good things, right? But sometimes our devotion can be to creating a busy schedule and filling in all of the gaps with a lot of good things, but they're not actually things that we are going to bring us closer to God. Right? There's a lot of things in our life, a lot of opportunities. We live in a wonderful world in West Michigan that creates lots of great opportunities for us. But is our devotion going to a busy schedule and doing all of these cool, exciting things? And how often is it not trying to create experiences where we see God in a new way? Or slowing down enough to take a walk alone in silence and just say, God, what do you want out of my life? See, I think for the Egyptians, God was coming in very clearly and saying, I am the one true God. I don't want you to be devoted to anything. And if you are going to be my people, if you're going to be people that are associated with me, you won't have to have other gods. You won't have to. Because I am above all of those things, and I alone want your devotion. See, God was making his people distinct. He was making them different from what this culture was used to. And if you're going to be my people, he was telling them, these are the things that will set you apart. These are the list of things that will naturally come if you are a part of me, if you are my people. When you're my people, you won't have to have other gods. And I think for us today, even though these tablets are thousands of years old at this point, that expectation for us has not changed. And that fruit that can come from not having to have other gods is still out there for us. But the question is, and this is what I want to end with today, do you have other gods before him? Are there other things? We won't even name them gods if you don't want in your life. But are there other things? Are there other gods that have more devotion in your life than him? Would you pray with me? God, I thank you for today. And I thank you for the sunshine and just the ability to come and gather and worship you. And God, I ask that as we think about our own lives, and we think about the things that may share our devotion, God, I ask that you convict us of those things and point those out to us in our head. And God, I ask that even though they may be good things, they may be things we thoroughly enjoy, I ask that you help us put them in the right order, that we figure out what might be getting too much devotion in our lives, and that we should turn those things over to you. And God, I ask that instead of filling our schedules and our busyness with more good things, that you show us how to create opportunities to grow closer with you. God, it is not an easy culture to do. It was not an easy culture to do thousands of years ago either. But God, I ask that you give us the courage to do those. In your name we pray. Amen.